What happens after death? It is one of the oldest questions human beings have ever asked, and also one of the most frightening. Not because we lack answers, but because we fear what those answers might mean. The fear is not really about dying. It is about disappearing. About losing everything familiar. About never seeing the people we love again. About whether all of this effort, love, and suffering leads somewhere or simply ends. Most people try not to think about death too often. We stay busy. We distract ourselves. We fill our lives with noise and movement. But in quiet moments, the question returns. Late at night, during illness, after losing someone close. Suddenly, death is no longer a philosophical idea. It becomes deeply personal. In modern society, especially in the West, death is often hidden. We speak of success, growth, and happiness, but rarely of impermanence. And yet, nothing shapes our lives more profoundly than the fact that they will end. The fear of death quietly influences our choices, our attachments, our need for control, and our constant search for meaning. The Buddha approached this question in a very different way. He did not speak about death to create fear or mystery. He did not use it to control people or offer comforting fantasies. He spoke about death to help people live without fear, to help them see life more clearly, to help them stop wasting the precious time they have. For the Buddha, death was not an enemy, it was a teacher, a mirror that reflects how we live. He observed that much of our anxiety comes not from death itself, but from our resistance to change and our attachment to what cannot stay. We fear death because we cling tightly to life without understanding its nature. So before asking what happens after death, the Buddha invited people to slow down and look honestly at their experience. To notice how fear arises. To notice how attachment forms. To notice how the mind reacts when faced with uncertainty. In doing so, he showed that the question of death is inseparable from the question of how we live. And perhaps this is where true understanding begins. Not with answers about the future, but with awareness of the present. Not with speculation about what comes next, but with clarity about what is happening now. Because according to the Buddha, only when we understand life can we begin to understand death. When people ask what happens after death, they usually want a destination, a place, somewhere the soul goes. Heaven, hell, another world, or nothing at all. But the Buddha noticed something important. This question, while natural, often pulls the mind away from what truly matters. So instead of answering where someone goes after death, he asked a different and much deeper question. What continues? The Buddha avoided speculation about the universe, creators, or eternal realms. Not because he lacked insight, but because he saw that guessing about unseen worlds did not end suffering. It only created new beliefs to cling to. He was not interested in comforting stories. He was interested in direct understanding. According to the Buddha, when the body dies, the body ends. This much is clear. But consciousness does not simply vanish into nothingness or travel as a fixed soul to another place. Consciousness is not a thing. It is a process, a flow of causes and conditions that arise, change, and pass away moment by moment. In this view, death is not a sudden stop. It is a transition. Just as waking follows sleep and sleep follows waking, death follows life as a change of conditions. Nothing solid travels onward, but nothing meaningful is lost either. What continues is not a self, but a momentum. The Buddha taught that life is a series of moments connected by cause and effect. Each moment conditions the next. Death is simply a powerful moment of change in this ongoing process. When conditions for the body end, conditions for experience shift. But the stream of causes does not break. This is why the Buddha did not describe death as an ending or a beginning. He described it as continuation without identity. The end of one form, the arising of another. Not as a reward or punishment, but as a natural unfolding of conditions. By shifting the focus from where you go to what continues, the Buddha gently redirected attention back to life itself. Because if what continues is shaped by how we live now, then the most important question is not about death at all. It is about how we are living in this very moment. One of the most misunderstood teachings of the Buddha is the idea of no permanent self. When people hear this, they often feel afraid. They think it means that nothing exists, that there is no identity, no continuity, no one there at all. But this is not what the Buddha meant. The Buddha was not saying that you do not exist. He was saying that you do not exist as a fixed, unchanging entity. What you call yourself is not a solid thing. It is a process, a living flow of experiences, thoughts, emotions, memories, and intentions, constantly changing from moment to moment. To explain this, the Buddha used simple observations. Look at your body. It is not the same as it was 10 years ago. Look at your thoughts. They arise and disappear. Look at your feelings. They change depending on conditions. Nothing you can point to stays exactly the same. And yet, there is continuity. Life flows forward without being frozen in one form. The Buddha compared this to a flame passing from one candle to another. The flame is not the same flame, but it is not completely different either. It continues through conditions. Or like a river. We give it one name, but the water flowing through it is never the same. The river exists, but not as a fixed substance. This understanding changes how we see death. If there is no permanent self, then death is not the destruction of something solid. It is the transformation of a process. What ends is a particular form. What continues is the movement of causes and conditions that have been unfolding all along. This is why the Buddha did not describe death as annihilation. Nothing real is destroyed. And he did not describe it as eternal survival of a soul. Nothing fixed is preserved. Instead, life continues the way it always has, through change. For many people, the fear of death is the fear of being erased. The Buddha's teaching gently points to a different truth. What you truly are is not something that can be erased because it was never a solid object to begin with. You are an ongoing becoming. And death is not the end of that becoming. It is a shift in how it continues. When this is understood, death loses some of its terror. It becomes less like falling into nothingness and more like stepping into a new phase of a process that has never stopped changing. And with this clarity, the question of what happens after death begins to feel less frightening and more natural. When the Buddha spoke about what continues after death, he often used the word karma. But karma in Buddhist teaching is not punishment and it is not reward. It is momentum. It is the natural movement created by intention, repeated again and again over time. Every thought you return to, every emotional habit you strengthen, every action you choose with awareness or without it, leaves an imprint on the mind. Over time, these imprints form tendencies, patterns of reacting, ways of seeing the world. This is karma. Not something imposed from outside, but something built from within. When the body dies, these tendencies do not suddenly disappear. Anger does not vanish simply because the heart stops beating. Compassion does not vanish either. Fear, generosity, resentment, kindness, patience, awareness. These qualities have been trained over a lifetime. And training does not end in an instant. According to the Buddha, what continues after death is not a person, but these conditioned patterns. The habits of the heart. The momentum of the mind. Just as a seed carries the potential of a tree without being the tree itself, karma carries forward the direction of a life without carrying a fixed self. This is why death does not erase who we have been practicing to become. If the mind has been trained in fear, confusion, and clinging, that momentum continues. If the mind has been trained in calm, clarity, and compassion, that momentum also continues. Death does not reset the mind. It reveals what has been cultivated. Seen this way, karma is not something to fear. It is something to understand, because it means that life is meaningful at every moment. Each intention matters. Each moment of awareness matters. Not because of judgment, but because of continuity. The Buddha taught that freedom does not come from hoping for a better future after death. It comes from changing the momentum here and now, by becoming aware of our patterns, by loosening harmful habits, by cultivating wisdom and compassion in daily life. When karma is understood as momentum, death no longer feels like a random event. It becomes part of a larger flow shaped by how we live. And this understanding gently shifts the focus away from fear of what comes next, toward responsibility and care for this moment, which is always where transformation begins. In some Buddhist traditions, there is a teaching about an intermediate or transitional state after death. This idea is often misunderstood as something mystical or frightening, but the Buddha's emphasis was never on fear or supernatural imagery. It was on the mind and how it experiences transition. The Buddha taught that when the body can no longer support consciousness, the mind does not immediately settle into a new form. Instead, there is a period of transition shaped almost entirely by mental habits and emotional tendencies. This is not a place in the physical sense. It is an experience, a continuation of awareness without the familiar anchors of the body and senses. In this state, the mind encounters itself more directly. Without daily distractions, without social roles, without physical routines, the patterns that were strongest in life become most vivid. A calm mind meets calm. A fearful mind meets fear. A compassionate mind meets openness. There is no external judge, no punishment imposed from outside. There is only the mind encountering its own conditioning. The Buddha did not describe this to predict what anyone would experience. He described it to show how deeply the mind shapes reality. Even in life, we already experience this. When the mind is anxious, the world feels threatening. When the mind is peaceful, the same world feels manageable. After death, this principle becomes even clearer. This teaching is not meant to encourage speculation about visions or timelines. The Buddha discouraged obsession with details. What mattered to him was preparation. Not preparation through rituals, but preparation through how one lives. By training the mind in awareness, kindness, and clarity, one reduces fear not only in life, but in transition. Seen this way, the idea of an intermediate state is not something to worry about. It is a reminder that the mind is our true home. And wherever the mind goes, it carries its habits with it. By caring for the mind now, we are caring for whatever comes next without needing to know exactly what it will be. The Buddha spoke about death more often than many people expect. Not to create fear and not to pull attention away from life, but to bring people fully into it. He understood that ignoring death leads to careless living, while understanding death brings clarity, urgency, and compassion. When people forget that life is impermanent, they postpone what truly matters. They hold on to resentment. They delay forgiveness. They chase trivial concerns as if time were endless. The Buddha saw that much suffering comes not from death itself, but from living as though death were not real. By contemplating death, the Buddha encouraged wakefulness. He reminded people that every moment is fragile and therefore precious. This awareness was not meant to make life heavy. It was meant to make it meaningful. When we understand that nothing is guaranteed, we begin to choose more carefully how we speak, how we act, and how we treat others. The Buddha also knew that fear of death often drives unwholesome behavior. Fear leads to greed, control, and aggression. People cling more tightly when they feel threatened by loss. By facing death directly without denial or fantasy, the Buddha taught that fear could soften. When fear softens, the heart opens. In Buddhist practice, remembering death is not morbid. It is grounding. It brings attention back to what is real. This breath, this interaction, this choice. The Buddha taught that the true danger is not death, but unconscious living. A life spent asleep, driven by habit and fear, is a life that misses its own depth. By speaking openly about death, the Buddha offered freedom from it. Not freedom from dying, but freedom from being ruled by fear. When death is understood as natural and inevitable, it loses its power to dominate the mind. And when the mind is no longer dominated by fear, it becomes capable of love, generosity, and wisdom. As the Buddha reflected on death, he gently shifted attention away from fear and toward what truly matters before death arrives. He did not ask people to prepare by accumulating possessions, status, or achievements. He asked them to prepare by shaping the mind and the heart. According to the Buddha, when life comes to an end, we do not carry our roles with us. We do not carry our titles, our wealth, or our unfinished plans. What remains is how we have trained the mind, the habits we have strengthened, the qualities we have practiced again and again. If the mind has been trained in anger, resentment, and blame, those patterns feel familiar and strong. If the mind has been trained in kindness, patience, and awareness, those qualities feel natural and steady. Death does not create something new. It reveals what has already been cultivated over a lifetime. The Buddha emphasized that this is why everyday moments matter so deeply. How we speak when we are frustrated. How we act when no one is watching. How we respond to suffering, both our own and others. These small moments shape the direction of the mind far more than dramatic events. From this perspective, life becomes meaningful not because it is long, but because it is intentional. Each moment of awareness is a step toward freedom. Each act of compassion is a seed planted in the mind. Each time we let go of resentment or fear, we lighten the weight we carry. The Buddha taught that the most important preparation for death is learning how to live well. To live with honesty. To live with care. To live with a heart that is not constantly at war with reality. When this kind of living becomes natural, death loses much of its terror, because nothing essential feels unfinished. What matters most, then, is not how life ends but how it is lived. Not how much we manage to hold on to, but how much we learn to release. And in this understanding, life and death no longer feel like opposites, but like two expressions of the same unfolding path. In the Buddhist teaching, death is not separate from life. It is not an event waiting at the end of the road. It is a mirror that reflects how we have been living all along. The way we meet death is shaped by the way we meet each moment. With fear or with awareness. With resistance or with acceptance. When we see this clearly, the question begins to change. Instead of asking what happens after death, we begin to ask how we are living right now. Are we present or lost in worry? Are we kind or caught in judgment? Are we awake or simply passing time? The Buddha did not offer answers meant to satisfy curiosity. He offered guidance meant to free the heart. He taught that when we live with awareness, compassion, and wisdom, fear slowly loosens its grip. Death no longer feels like a threat. It becomes a natural completion of a life lived with care. Nothing in life is meant to be owned forever. Everything we love is borrowed for a time. When we understand this, gratitude replaces fear. Each breath becomes precious. Each connection becomes meaningful. Each moment becomes enough. Perhaps the deepest teaching of all is this. We do not need to wait until death to understand life. We do not need certainty about what comes next to live fully now. The Buddha reminded us that meaning is not found in answers about the future, but in awareness of the present. So if there is one question worth holding, it may not be what happens after death, but how fully we are alive before it. How gently we live. How honestly we see. And how open our hearts are in this moment, which is the only moment we are ever truly given.